Hi Anti-Society, welcome back to the Antisocial Planet, and today we are checking out Dreamcatcher's Prequel album. I'm so excited for this because I feel like because it's Prequel, there might be more of a mix in their sound than before. Part of that's because I've already listened to Fly High and had some discussions with people about how they were trying to incorporate some things from like when they were Minx to now, so that that's the overlap of their sounds over the years. So I'm excited to see what else is going to be in this album in terms of them reflecting on who they were previously to now being Dreamcatcher. But we have 4 songs to go through because I've already listened to Fly High, and I am super excited. I'm probably gonna cry at one of them because that seems to be the theme so far with going through their albums. We get to like the B-sides and I just get into my emotions, but also always excited to get a bunch of new music in my life from Dreamcatcher. So let's check out the intro first. Also, can we talk about how pretty the album art is for this? Like, I'm a sucker for purple in general, but the whole design, love it. I wasn't expecting birds and wind chimes, but okay. Okay, no, I'm like, one, we had some cool sounds coming in, but I'm like on edge about doors ever since the intro for the last album, because we had the mysterious knocking before. Is this the like, I guess because it's prequel, so it's supposed to be before chronologically story-wise. Interesting. We have some more poppy sounds though. I'm used to it being more rock, which again was kind of what I was talking about before, about how I feel like it might be more of a mixture of sounds as opposed to what was before, where they were trying to stick more with the rock sound because they were trying to establish that as their sound as a group. Ooh, okay, lots of like synths, more like electronic based sounds, much brighter in general. I was thinking even with the sounds at the beginning, like we have like birds chirping and the wind chimes, there's something very, I don't know, peaceful about that, which is very different from other ones where it's like the creepy music box and the knocking and this feeling of suspense that has been with other parts in their intros and things like that. I'm trying to think if there's ever been a bird sound before. I feel like maybe there has somewhere. Let me know if I'm onto something. Because I feel like at some point I've heard a bird, and I don't know if it was chronologically in their albums, or maybe it was something from some of the newer stuff that I heard. I don't know now. Ooh, I love the guitar. It's a little bit more retro sounding too with the synths. That swell? Ooh, there's more of a rock sound with the guitar there. The bass is like crazy heavy in this and not like a rock bass. It's more like a club bass, EDM bass. I'm probably wrong about that. But look, EDM, dance, club kind of music is not my forte. It's not the music that I usually listen to, nor do I ever go out clubbing. So I would not know, but it does sound more like a beat pad as opposed to something more like analog, which I'm a little bit more used to hearing in their music, because you tend to have like an actual like strumming bass with rock music. Like the like snap sound though. This almost seems like, I don't know, like a spy soundtrack moment. Almost like the synths that are almost like horns, like brass instruments. There was like so many different layers of synths, which is really interesting to me because I'm like, give me all of the chaotic production choices. But also like very synth heavy in a way that I'm not entirely used to going chronologically with their music. I know that they had some stuff later on. So interesting kind of start to it because it's more upbeat. It sounds a little bit more, like I said, like almost like a spy mission soundtrack, because it feels like someone like on a mission, someone with moving with like an intention. and things like that. It doesn't have the same kind of eerie, dark, kind of looming feeling that some of their other intros have had. So now I'm even more interested in what this album is going to sound like, because this sounds a little bit more, I don't know, like there's this feeling of having like a clear path as opposed to some of the other ones where it was more focused on like the feeling of being kind of stuck in like the nightmare and things like that. I don't know, we'll go into the next track. We'll see if any of my predictions pan out. First full track. I was not ready for that like really intense guitar immediately, especially after the intro. I mean, I guess I have to remember that Fly High's in the middle if we're going like narratively with the sounds and things. But more rock kind of sounding. Maybe we'll go into that part of their talent pool. Why does Gaihan look like a vampire though? Just looked over. It's a really interesting effect on the guitar though. Ooh, I got distracted by the bright sound of their voice, like especially Gaihan coming in. Again, I have to sort of remember that they're younger in this era in comparison to some of the later stuff that I've heard. So their voices are going to be brighter naturally. But after hearing some of their stuff where they were having a bit of a brighter sound, and they definitely did in Fly High, but it's very brightened in this that I noticed it more. Maybe it's because there's more of a darker sound, like more rock sound to the instrumentation, that it makes that contrast between their brighter sound stick out a lot more. It threw me off though. Okay. It almost sounds sentimental a little bit. I like the backing vocal. Ooh, good little pause there. Okay, so I got distracted there a little bit because that doesn't sound like Gio to me. And I know that these aren't always the most accurate, so maybe that's what's throwing me off. Maybe who they're saying is singing is not who's actually singing, which is like tricking my brain a little bit. Interesting that they said like, I want to find like another dream, and we've had tons of imagery about dreams and things like that before, and wanting to stay in dream, trapping someone in dream. And I talked about how I felt like with Fly High, it felt more like they were being trapped as opposed to in the previous songs where it felt like they were trapping someone in the dream. So them saying like I'm looking for like another dream, especially with like the prequel, right? I'm thinking of that as, you know, they before their dream was probably something else, whether that was Minx for like the originals, for like the members that were part of that, or the newcomers to the group. I know that they were doing like other things, going to like art schools and things like that. So then them looking for like another dream, maybe Dreamcatcher, maybe moving on and doing something else and having to give up on what you thought your dream was going to be. So interesting to have, I know, this brighter sound, but like mixed like with their vocals and then mixed with the more like rock elements of the instrumentation. Really like forward driving though, like it feels very much like they're going towards something. It doesn't sound like Gio to me, but oof. I love that slide doing the production. I really like the idea of like wake up, especially since we've been talking about dreams and all that kind of stuff with all the imagery before, saying wake up being the contrast of that, right? Like not being in a dream anymore. But it's almost like, I think that there's double meanings. I feel like it could be before like they had a dream and they had to give up on it to pivot, do something else. And that's never easy, especially re-debuting is not an easy thing to do. Rebranding a group is not an easy thing to do in general. But I think it could also be like realizing it's not just a dream anymore. Like a dream is like something that's intangible. It's something that doesn't happen in reality. And I feel like now that they've gotten this far, they have debuted again and then they got a comeback and now they are doing another release. I feel like it might be feeling less like something that they have to desperately hold on to. And I said that in the previous albums, it felt like they were like, you know, grabbing onto you and like making you listen and pay attention to them. And I feel like they might feel slightly more at ease now, because your first couple of albums in a group, from like what I have grasped from listening to K-pop for a number of years, is like a ton of pressure for any group, let alone a group doing it again. You know, like they already tried and it didn't work and then they had to try again. So it's a lot of stress to get your debut and then to get a comeback so that you can continue on and still being a group. So this may also be like time to wake up, because like it isn't a dream anymore. This is like the life that you're actually living. This is your reality now, is being Dreamcatcher, being a musician and having some success with that. And it's time to like be okay with the fact that that is who you are. I love the sound of it though. Like it's a ton of energy to it. Feeling that of like running forward, but like joyously. Ooh, I like lost my ability to talk there for a while. You like, it almost feels like a childish way of like running around. Like you like run outside because you're excited as like a kid. That's almost what it feels like to me. Anyway. They're doing something with their voices. It's throwing me off for this one, honestly, because it's not something that I've heard from them before. And I feel like it's like getting to me that I'm like a little bit distracted by the fact that I am not used to hearing them sound like this. It's far more poppy. And I mean, I guess to anyone who's actually heard any of their like Minx songs, they can fill me in on that, because I haven't heard any of it except for like I think a couple of small clips when I did the guide, but I haven't like fully listened to it. So this might be more reminiscent of what they sang like back then as opposed to what they sounded like in Dreamcatcher, because obviously singing for pop is very different from singing for rock. Like you can have more of a pop vocal in a rock song, and I feel like they definitely don't go like the heavy rock route with their vocals. So there's a spectrum really of like where you can fall and like how rock to pop you are. But this is like way farther on the pop side than I'm used to hearing them, because they usually tend to go with something that fits more. And we got it with the like hook of the song where they went more into like the sound that I'm used to. So I feel like it is very intentional of like what they're doing with their voices to like really play into something that's very bright, forward facing. It almost sounds more youthful, which I feel like it has to be intentional. It's throwing off a little bit, but I also feel like we had the one lyric that was like, I have nowhere else to go. I feel like that is because of the more uplifting feeling of the song. It is like, I don't have to worry that I have to go somewhere else, right? Like the wake up from the dream, because it's not a dream anymore. They are Dreamcatcher. They are like succeeding, and to some extent this is still earlier on in their career, but it's like I don't have to worry about going somewhere else. I don't need a backup plan in the way that I felt like maybe I did at the beginning, because there was a chance that this was not going to work out. Whereas now they probably feel more stable in that. Again, I'm guessing, I haven't gone through and like seen a bunch of their stuff from earlier on, like live streams and vlogs and that kind of a thing, where maybe they would voice a little bit more about how they were feeling, but that's the vibe that I'm getting from it right now. I like all the little background vocal moments though. Yeah, like my new self, right? sorry, we got like some chunky guitar, but like that like wake up to my new self, right? Like it's that idea of like, it's not just like a thing that I dreamt of, that I wanted, like this person that I wanted to become, this group that I wanted to be part of, like succeed and all of those things. It's something that they're actually doing. And I almost feel like this one where it's like everyone is asleep right now is almost, you know, like when you say like people are like sleeping on you, is because it's like the idea that someone doesn't realize how talented you are, how good you are at what you're doing. And you say that all the time with like groups, right? You're like, oh, I love this group, people sleep on them, people, they're like underrated, we know, we talk about that kind of a thing. And I feel like this is maybe almost something like that, where it's like everyone else is staying in this dream and they're thinking about like the potential that like isn't here yet, and they're like, no, we're here, we're Dreamcatcher, we're here, we're a group, we're doing all right for ourselves, we're releasing music, we're doing shows, we're recording music videos, like we're doing things, we are Dreamcatcher. This isn't like a thing that we're thinking of and planning and that kind of a thing. I like that idea of like, after all of this dream imagery and all these things like you know, like lullaby and good night and like all of these things that are about like being asleep and wanting to stay in that dream and stuff, is now like them maybe growing past that and not needing it to be like almost like a closed off thing, right? Where it's like a dream in the sense of like we're here as like Dreamcatcher and Insomnia, and now it's like maybe they're breaking out a little bit more, and it doesn't have to be something that is more like them playing maybe to people who were their fans before, right? Like people who are fans of Minx, and therefore they kind of had people to support them, and they were kind of working off of that. Again, all conjecture, I don't actually know. I'm sure that people can give me all of the information and I would love to hear it, or point me to where I can get it to. That would also work. I know that there's a dodging disbandment video that people want me to check out, so like maybe that's something we'll have to get into soon. See, this part sounds more like what I'm used to hearing them sing like. Love this chunky guitar sound. Ooh, that synth building up in the back. See, okay, I love when they slow down and they let Jiu come in, because it's so beautiful. It's a wonderful contrast. She always does a great job. But I love that idea of like, I only ever had the one wish, and it's like, and now my voice is, you know, loud, right? Like people can hear them singing and the things that they want to say. And I also feel like, and again, conjecture because I have not listened to Minx songs, but I almost feel like this style is more in tune with who they are. And I feel like people have commented that before about how some of the members are like rock fans and therefore they were influenced by that. And because of that, it was maybe a little bit restricting to do pop music. And I also know that being an idol and doing pop music, there's like things that you're not supposed to talk about in your songs, and there's like almost this expectation, especially with girl groups that are going more of the cutesy route, to write fun, cute music that like isn't gonna like dive into too many deep topics. But I know from going through their earlier stuff, they do dig into that nuance and they do talk about things, and they have dark imagery in not just their music videos but in their lyrical content. So it's almost like not only are people hearing them sing, but people are hearing them through them singing, right? They're able to show more of themselves maybe, instead of like trying to fit into the mold of like what a like K-pop idol girl group is like supposed to be. I know that mold has become more nuanced in more recent years, but I'm sure that when they were like starting out and Minx and that kind of a thing, there was a little bit more going on in terms of the restrictions of what that sound was. People expected that sound to be. The little vibrato, beautiful. We're not just going past that note. Ooh, I actually really, we'll go back and listen, because if it's good, listen to it 3 times. But I also, in that instance, I really like the effect that they did on our voice, because it almost mimics the effect on the electric guitars. So it's like the two of them kind of syncing together. It's almost like her voice is becoming one of the instruments. But I also think it's interesting because you have a very clean vocal and something that is a little bit slower, and then we're transitioning to something that sounds more like a rock sound, right? Like an electric guitar is very tied up with rock music. So having her voice sound more like an electric guitar and having that kind of like belting, powerful moment in her voice is like mimicking that transition into a new sound, right? At least that's what I'm taking. Oh, I love that. That like stutter, I love the swell of that synth and then into the singing and then that like stutter in the production. Ooh, we changed the lyrics. Oh, I love that they changed the lyrics at the end where it was before, I think it was like wake up to like the new me or like my new, yeah, like the new me. And then that one was like, I believe in me, right? Like it's that idea of before almost like needing to embody this person that you need to be now, like especially like I was saying, if they had to take on certain expectations of who they were going to be and what their sound was going to be as like a K-pop girl group sound, and they felt like they needed to play into that, but also they were a lot younger. I mean, who is the same person that they were? At least I'm thinking about like me 5 years ago, not the same person I am now, let alone when I was like in my teens. So I feel like it's also like them growing and developing. You go through an experience like that where you try to chase your dream and it doesn't work out and you have to start over again. You're going to be a different person than you were when you first tried. So I feel like it's also like them not only breaking out of maybe what the expectations for them were, but also them just acknowledging that they've changed and they're a new person. And now it's like, but I trust this version of me. I've grown more. I've survived what happened. I've learned things. I'm more prepared for what I'm doing now, so I can believe in myself. Yeah, there's some interesting things here with like the vocal performance that I can't quite put my a pin on, which bothers me because I want to know. So yeah, let me know some of the story behind this one if there is that I should be filled in on. It makes me want to go back and listen to their stuff more when they were Minx so that I can get that comparison a little bit more. Next song though. Okay, we have a special clip for this one, which is very exciting. And lyrics on it, so all good things. This one I'm interested in because we're going from wake up to sleepwalking. Interesting, like narratively, what that might mean. Ooh. I wasn't ready for the synth sound. I like that we're getting some dancing though. Gosh, floor work again. Okay, one, I was not expecting the like very synth sound of this. I think even with like the lighting in this is very like has kind of that retro feeling to it with the like red blue going on. So again, we're sticking with that kind of poppier sound as opposed to rock. The last song with Wake Up definitely had more rock influence on like the production, but they sounded very poppy. So it's very much having more of that pop sound into it, which I find fascinating from like a narrative standpoint of like their discography. I love finding narratives, so this is just like bread and butter for me. Yeah, heavy synths, very like dance oriented, and we're getting some dancing. I think this is maybe one of the ones where before was it Chase Me, the dance practice, where I was like, ooh, I feel bad for anyone who has to do any kind of floor work when they don't have like protection for like their knees, shins, and like their like elbows and like upper arms and stuff like that, forearms and stuff. And then someone was like, wait till you get to this, because I'm seeing a lot of people without protection on their legs, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you have to go through that. They couldn't all be Xian with pants during this performance. But even like their outfits seem more youthful, right? So it's, again, I feel like there are a lot of probably parallels to what Minx was and what their sound was before, and the aesthetic of it, and them kind of nodding to that because we have this idea of a prequel, right? It's like them saying, we still acknowledge that that's part of who we are. Like, we aren't completely forgetting that that was part of our journey, but we're just like incorporating who we are now within that story and like within who that person is. Ooh, choreography. Whoa! That flip over though? I'm reading lyrics, I just like remember that I should be like paying attention to that too. That one, like hitting it with like their hips. Nice. Ooh, okay. This one's interesting, yeah, again, I feel like maybe, it seems like they're trying to, like they said in the lyric of like filling a broken heart with something else, right? Now, I feel like if we're sticking with kind of the like synthy dance, almost like club feeling of it, we can simplify this and talk about like a specific person, a romantic interest, whatever, but I don't want to simplify to that because you can interpret it that way if you want, but I feel like it doesn't fit within the narrative of like what they're saying in the album. It's almost, if I had to guess, like if we're going with sleepwalking, right, after wake up, sleepwalking is not being awake. It's seeming like you're awake and going about your life, but you're actually dreaming, and you don't realize it, right? You don't like realize that you're moving in reality because your perspective is through the dream. So it almost seems to me like they're maybe intentionally referencing being part of Minx, like it's them taking this more of the sound, taking more of the like visual aesthetic of like what they're wearing. There may even be some other references to it that, again, I just don't understand, but it's almost like the struggle to like let it go, I guess, and the need to like, and again, I don't know the full story and I'm not quite sure that I'm going to word it correctly, but almost like you know that something isn't going to work, but you're not ready to give it up, especially if it's a dream, right? Like if you've dreamt about something, you've put a bunch of work in it, it's like I can't remember exactly what it's called, but there's like a fallacy that people talk about where it's like you believe that because the time sink fallacy or something, where it's like you feel like because you've put so much time and energy into something, you have to just stick with it because you're just like hoping that it'll work out, even though your heart isn't in it the same way that it used to be, and it probably won't work out. Like you can see the failure coming, but because you spent so much time and energy into it, you feel like you can't let go of it. I mean, I think it takes a lot of strength to give up a dream, because people feel like if you have a dream, or you need to have a dream, a life's purpose that you need to like have, and then the idea that maybe you chose wrong can be devastating to people, because how do you give up on your dream? Everyone tells you not to give up on your dream, to live your dream, to embrace your dream, to have your dream life. That's what people always talk about. And they never really talk about what does it mean when you get older, or you change, or things happen in your life, or you try and it doesn't work out and you have to give up that dream. What do you do then? Like suddenly you don't have a dream, and it can feel like you have to stick with it because it felt right to the past you, it felt right in the moment. Maybe you've told a bunch of people and they know that like that's your dream, and you feel like you have to stick with it. So it's almost feels like to me like they're intentionally holding on to some of the stylistic choices of what their music used to be, as a way of saying like, I don't know, like mimicking the struggle of like, how do you decide to give up? Because we're told not to give up. We're told to keep going and to keep struggling and to fight for our dreams. But you know, what happens if you're already brokenhearted? What happens if it's already not your dream anymore? And you realize that you're going to have to give it up, but you don't know how to do that because it's been your whole life. It consumes you. So I almost feel like that's more of what's happening, where it's like, it's this idea of them showing what they went through to decide not to be the group that they originally were going to be, let alone deciding to become Dreamcatcher. I almost feel like it might be, I don't know, maybe like by the next song, we might sink fully into like them deciding to be Dreamcatcher, because again, prequel, so it has to be one of those things where I'm assuming it's one of those things where it's like before Dreamcatcher. It's like trying to tell the narrative of what was going on between I I think they released an album as Minx to, you know, going into Dreamcatcher and like Chase Me and stuff. Like what happened in between that of like deciding what to do? Ooh, the production on this though. Yeah, I'm like, I have not heard that much of an electric sound from them. So that's really interesting to me, that like drop very electronic, but there's also something, I don't know, dark to it, which again, even like to this video, there's a lot of darkness to it, right? And they were talking about like midnight and the night getting deeper and things like that. That makes me feel like they're kind of sinking into this darker place, even though it's kind of bright on the surface, you know, like the brighter outfits, the lights, the brighter sound in their vocals, the more upbeat sound compared to some of their other things. I really do feel like it's mimicking that idea of like you're sinking into that darkness, but maybe on the surface it doesn't seem that way, as they're like trying to figure out how to continue to be a group and make it work and present as if things are okay and working out, even though behind the scenes maybe they're not. Ooh, that like time to goodbye and then the repeated no, like the like denial of it. I feel like I'm onto something. Watch me be completely wrong. And people be like, no, some of the songs about any at all. But that's what I'm getting from it, of it being, you know, one of those things of how do you let go of it? Even like it's almost maybe like they're singing to their past selves. Like it's that idea of being stuck in between of like who they were like first as performers, entertainers, and then who they've become, and feeling like maybe they need to be that person. Because for me, I've come into the group as them being Dreamcatcher and being Dreamcatcher for a number of years, and my first impression is them as who they are in Dreamcatcher, whereas I'm sure if people who were fans of them as Minx were like, this is who you are, whatever their persona was within that group, whatever their sound was with that group. And I'm sure that when they pivoted quite sharply into what Dreamcatcher was, there were people who were like, but I want you to be this person, and that wasn't who they were portraying anymore. So I'm sure that they felt that like push and pull of like, how do I be the person that people are already fans of me expect me to be, and then the person that I'm trying to become, right? Like that. And that happens with like any performer who's been around for a while, who's had a career over a number of years. Again, like I was saying, none of us are who we were when we were teenagers. Hopefully, I hope that we've grown from that. Even me at the beginning of like being 20 to now, I'm not the same person. We all grow over time and develop as people. Ideally, it doesn't happen with everyone, unfortunately, but ideally that's what happens. And it's different when you have like photo evidence out in public with lots of people watching it, being like, hey, this is who you used to be, what happened? Especially with like idol culture, where people are constantly looking at who you are and your behavior and how you're acting, and there's a certain pressure to act a certain way. And definitely if there's like slight changes, people speak probably from a place of like concern and like actual caring of like, hey, why aren't you acting the way that I remember you acting? And it's not because anything bad has happened or that they're like particularly going through something in their life. It's just they grew up and they changed, or they became more comfortable being on camera, being an entertainer, that they could have more of who they genuinely are as part of that. They didn't feel like they had to hide behind kind of like a caricature of like specific traits of theirs. So I feel like they probably did struggle a lot with, how do we not disappoint the people who still are fans of us because we're not Minx anymore, but how do we also stay true to the group and the sound and the people that we're trying to be now? It's a lot of pressure. That's why I don't go back and look at my old videos. I don't want to know. See, memories, they're talking about memories too. There was like the me and I lyric as well. Without you, it's just me and I. Like, I feel like it is kind of that idea of, I don't know, I feel like the you in this song is who they were. Maybe I'm wrong. Very possible. Love the hand detail though. I was reading lyrics, I didn't see it before. A little worried for their necks in this choreo though. I love the little dance breaks though. I was just thinking, I love the mixture of like fast and slow motions that they're having. It's again kind of like a contrast between the two. There's like the harder hitting movements and then some of the like slower movements. I am curious if any of the dance moves in this are like either directly taken from choreos that they had during Minx, or if it's kind of mimicking some of that, because some of them are more like what I would say I'm used to seeing type of moves in like girl group choreos, in more of like the cutesy, or they usually go two ways with girl groups. It's usually cutesy and then they may transition into like something more seductive, sensual as the group like gets older and things like that. It kind of depends on the group and how long they stick around. So I feel like some of the moves are things that I would expect to see in a girl group, especially like being very like hand and arm movement oriented. That tends to be something that happens a lot more in like girl group dance moves, if you will, even though dance moves don't really can't have a gender on account of being dance moves, but they tend to focus more on like hand movements and arm movements as opposed to other things. So I feel like they're kind of switching between things that are more expected of like a girl group and then those were like intense, dramatic, hard-hitting movements that we've seen with their choreos as like Dreamcatcher. I'm curious, how am I anywhere close? Because I feel like I am just throwing a Hail Mary at this point. I also really want Sua's outfit. I don't know how I feel about them all looking at me like that though. Yeah, I feel like this one, because it's sleepwalking, it feels like a step back from Wake Up. That to me, it feels like they are intentionally pulling a lot more from who they were before Dreamcatcher and what they left behind, and maybe the struggle of like, how do you let go of something? How do you move on from a dream? How do you present yourself in a new way when people have expected you to be a certain way, right? Like, it's one thing to kind of go through the growing pains of figuring out yourself, figuring out your career off camera, out of the spotlight without public scrutiny, and it's another thing to like have it filmed and be out there and have people who are invested in you. And there can be wonderful things to that. Like, I make videos, it's great to have people to chat with who love the things that I do, and we get to swap ideas and stories and tell jokes that crack me up and I don't know how to explain it to people who are around me. I'm like, you wouldn't understand. You know, it's a great way of like connecting people and feeling like you found people who understand you, but it's also, I don't know, stressful. Like I'm so happy that I went through like all of my teenage years without any social media, which I'm sure people think is a lie because I was a teenager in the 2010s, but I did not get any social media until I was going away to university. So there's like no proof of all of the mistakes that I made as a teenager because I wasn't broadcasting it everywhere. And then to be a performer in that space, like even being a performer to some extent on a much, much smaller scale myself, it wasn't the same, right? Like people who were watching, who were noticing me were local people. They were people that I knew or were at least expecting something to be more of a local feel. It's different when you're like a performer in a professional setting. It is your job and you are going through the growing pains of like, who are you and who are you as a musician and who are you as a performer, and there's all of this proof of who you used to be, and then how do you pivot without people constantly comparing you to what you used to be. So interesting. I'm very, very interested to see what the next song is going to be to kind of bookend this album. I feel like maybe my prediction now is that it'll be far closer to a Dreamcatcher sound as a way of like transitioning into, you know, like Chase Me and like debut and like who they were going to be, but we'll have to see. All right, last song. Okay, let's see. Another special clip. We'll see if my prediction is right. Oh, we're going slower? The like it's not gonna get any better hits me. Especially if I'm right about this being a transition point, right? Like them trying to make a narrative of like what it was like to decide to re-debut and what was the process, what was the thought process, what were the feelings involved in that. She sounds gorgeous too. Don't we have flowers in the last song's lyrics? Oh, I'm holding hands though. Ooh, okay. Loving the guitars, the like acoustic. Also saying like tonight again. We had references in the last song about like memories from like last night and things like that. And now we have tonight, so like that transition of time. Again, saying like the weather is getting darker. We had like the night is getting deeper before, so kind of like parallels and like differences of, I think before, almost like a denial or the struggle between wanting something to work and needing to move on, and this one is almost like the darkest point, maybe like the realization that you can't fix it. It's the need to acknowledge like Sua's lyric at the beginning of like, it's not getting better. Like I've tried to fake it, I've tried to make it work, I've tried to like commit and stick with it and remember things of like what it was and try to bring that into like the present, and it's not working, it's not getting better. So this song almost feels like a, I don't know, resignation of it, you know, like it's that feeling of trying to be okay with the fact that this is something that isn't going to be fixed. That falsetto though. The smile. There is like that feeling of like almost like I was saying, like resignation and like seeing that something isn't going to work, but there's also like the smiles and there's this feeling of like it isn't as dark as like the last song. It doesn't have the same kind of, even though it's a more natural tones in this, which I think is interesting too, of like it feels more like they are being more of their natural selves than in Sleepwalking, where it felt more like an aesthetic, right? Like an intentional aesthetic put together. This feels far more like them being their natural selves. And also like the idea of like, so trust me is like this idea of, I feel like them trusting each other. I feel like that's what it is. Maybe part of it is like them saying trust me to like their fans, so like fans that they had before, and carrying those fans into the new sound, their new music, being like trust me, like this is gonna work. And I think it's also like them saying trust me to each other, right, as a group, because I know that that must have been scary too, of like, okay, we're gonna all do this together, because you have all of the members of Minx becoming members of Dreamcatcher, right? It's not like one or two of the members of the original group decided to move on and join another group. That has happened before with other groups. the whole group switched over. So it's them sticking together and choosing to trust each other and work through something and become something different with, you know, a couple of additions to fully round out everything, and them having to trust each other in that because it's them all moving together. Oh, their smiles are gonna get me though. Oh. Oh. Didn't we have a lyric too that was saying it's easy? Was it in Wake Up? I feel like there are a bunch of parallels in the lyrics that are like directly referencing the other songs and kind of putting them into a new context. But also that one where they're like, you know, when you're being frustrated, when you're struggling and stuff, I feel like that really is them like talking to each other, being like, this is gonna be difficult, but trust me, like we're gonna do this all together. They're so adorable. Oh. Talk about the weather too. They were talking about rain, but also I think this is the first time Dami has rapped in this whole album, because I don't think she did it in Fly High. She hasn't done it in other ones. I've like noticed but didn't fully register until now. Like I feel like part of my brain was like, there's a bit of rap part, which also makes me feel like they're intentionally mimicking Minx. Like people have talked about that in Fly High, of people pointing out that it was a different producer working on it and it was probably more of an intention of trying to mimic their sound originally, but I feel like it's something that's transitioned for the whole thing, and then now we're getting to a point where, like I was saying, it feels like more genuinely them, because I feel like maybe Dami didn't rap in Minx. Again, I haven't heard any of their music, but if I'm going from what they're doing this album, I would guess that she didn't, because this is the first time that she's actually done that in the whole album. So I feel like if she did, it was like far and few between. So I feel like now that she's doing it, it's like this is more of a genuine part of her. Like she wants to be a rapper and showing that part of herself, even though it wouldn't have fit with like the original concept. Also the smiles. Oh, that production? I love how before I was talking about how Sua's falsetto was beautiful, and then in that one we have more of the production. She's like, that's like chest, right? She's singing much more closure, more power. It's almost like confidence, right? It's that feeling of like, yes, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's going through my head. This is what I'm thinking about. But it's like being more sure of that feeling. I'm also like slightly still not over Lullaby, that seeing them by themselves near windows is getting to me emotionally. Seeing them, I'm like, y'all better not be all alone. I know that we have Dami and Gahyeon together, but I'm like, y'all better not be all alone for this whole thing again, because I'm seeing parallels between the visual for this and Lullaby. Y'all better not get me in my feelings, especially Gio. That line of like, I want to keep the happy me. I feel like part of that is, you know, wanting to, like I was saying, like fit a persona and fit into what people expect you, but what do you do when that isn't who you are anymore, or that isn't what makes you happy? Like if you asked me to be the person that I was 5 years ago and we're like, you have to act that as that person, it would not be the same happiness that I feel now. Even though there were moments when I was happy, 5 year ago me, I knew how to be happy, and being able to like relive those moments, I'm sure that there would be happiness and nostalgia to that, and like thinking back on them can make me smile and cheer me up, but being that person wouldn't make me happy anymore. And the idea of like needing to give up that person, even though you can remember the good times, even though you can remember being happy, if it's not making you happy now, you have to give it up. And like saying like I want to keep the happy me isn't just like I want to keep my past self when I was happy. It's like I want to be happy now, and I want to keep that person, whoever that person is, and no matter how they change, I want to keep that happiness and smile more, right? It's like keep happiness instead of a dream that doesn't work anymore. Is it the first time Handong's come in? Maybe she's done some of the backing ones, but I was like, right in my feelings. Oh, that electric guitar too. Oh, their smiles are so sweet. I want you to be together though. Yay, together! That brings me more joy than I can explain. Even though they're just like sat at a table together. I feel like, okay, were there intentionally parallels between this special clip and the Lullaby special clip? Because I feel like there were. Because I feel like where Sua was, where she was like sitting, that was similar, where she was like facing head on with the camera. I feel like that was in Lullaby. Then we had Jiu by the window, and then with Xian also and Yehyun. I feel like there were parallels with like the actual choice of like where they were and the camera angles. Let me know. I will investigate. I will go frame by frame to figure out if there are parallels. Now that it's in my head. Yeah, really beautiful, feels more down to earth, feels more like, I feel like even though Sleepwalking was fun, I loved the dancing in it, the aesthetic was fun, the lights and things, but there was something very performative about it. And I feel like this song is more of the like genuine feeling and them being like resigning themselves, like I was saying, to the fact that they have to move on, right? Like they've tried and it didn't work, and it's hard to give up on something, but you have to choose being happy, right? Like them saying, like, I want to keep the happy me. It's like, I want to keep happiness more than I want to keep this dying dream, more than this thing that I thought would be my life, that I thought would be the thing that I devoted the rest of my time to. I want to be happy, and this doesn't make me happy anymore. And it takes so much strength to give up on something that you think is your dream and move on. And I mean, I'm someone who does not have a dream, and that freaks people out, because it's always like, what's your ambition? What is your life's purpose? What is your dream? And I'm like, I just want to be happy. You know, like I just want to be happy and share that happiness with other people. That's it. That's all I've got. When people are like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't even know where I see myself in 2 years, let alone 5. And as long as I'm doing things that feel right and make me happy and can improve other people's lives in the process, that'd be great. But I don't have like a clear path that I'm on. So I have so much sympathy for people who do feel like they have that clear path and then they find out that it's not right. I feel them coming through of like deciding like, I'm choosing to trust, trust me, trust the group, trust each other as they change and grow and decide that maybe their dream isn't what they originally thought and they need to pivot from that. Didn't get me quite as emotional as like Lullaby did, because I feel like there was that undercurrent of hope and optimism, and like I know that they continue and do wonderful things with their career. But yeah, just them like coming to terms with it. I'm also wondering, was Hantang the last person to join the group? Because she was the last one to come in to actually sing. So I wonder if that was intentional, of like they were making her come in near the end as a way of like paralleling the fact that they're shifting, that journey of shifting from, you know, the members that were in Minx into Dreamcatcher. Just a random thought that I had. That was such a different sound all around from what I'm used to hearing from Dreamcatcher up to this point, and I very much feel like it was intentional. I feel like everything that they did on this was to have, you know, be a prequel, be like, what were we before we became Dreamcatcher? And I kind of love the idea of doing that. Like, they've had to establish really early on and strong that this is who they are, right? They couldn't have done something like this as like their first release because they needed to establish that they were going to be different. It wasn't like a group first debuting and there was nothing else out there by them and they could do whatever sound they wanted and they could talk about the journey of like getting into being this group. They had to be like, we're Dreamcatcher, this is our sound, we're not Minx anymore, this is what this group is going to be. And they had to be strong with it. With a sound like rock, especially in K-pop, they had to establish that in a strong and assertive way, and they definitely did. And then they did it for the second album too, because I'm sure that they were still kind of worried, like, and it was a single album, so it wasn't a full EP like this one, so I'm sure that they were still like really trying to be like, this is who we are, this is our sound, and we're just happy to get a comeback of some kind. And then this one, now that they've had some time, and I think with this one probably they've lasted longer than they did with Minx, they felt a little bit more at ease to say, okay, now here's the story, right? Of like, this is us looking back now that we've done something else, now that we've put some distance and some perspective on who we were and what happened. Here's the story. And I love getting all of these different sounds coming out, the mixture of pop meeting with rock, and them deciding of how to use their vocals in different ways that I wasn't expecting, and just going through the like ups and downs of it, right? Of like, you know, what do you do when you're like aiming to you know, fly high, to aim for the top, and you're expecting kind of that trajectory and that hopefulness, and then you sort of are like, yes, we got it, we got to debut, we got to be the person that we were like training to be, and like we're finally out here on a stage, and then it's like, oh no, this isn't working. When you get to something like Sleepwalking, right, where it's like, maybe if I just like keep at it, because I can remember when it was good, I can remember when it was happy, I can remember when I felt like it was going to work, so if I just like pull on that and bring that into the present and hold on to it, maybe we can make this work. And then getting into Trust Me, where it's like, I need to trust myself that this isn't going to work, and I need to trust the people around me to make this jump, make this pivot, and do something else, because this isn't working, right? Like, in the lyrics, they're like, it isn't getting better, even though we're trying. So clearly this is something that we need to move on from. This just makes me more and more curious to listen to their stuff as Minx. I wasn't gonna do it for a while because I was going to focus more on Dreamcatcher stuff and then maybe go back and revisit it. It's just like a fun thing once I caught up with more of the Dreamcatcher music, but now I'm so curious to go back and hear it and see where it lines up with this music and their like interpretation later on. Also go into some of the story of that more. I know that there's the Dodging Disbandment video that someone told me about forever ago, and I haven't gotten to it yet, so maybe that's something that I have to get to because my curiosity is piqued about the story in more detail and to really see what they were like as that group before getting into Dreamcatcher, which I think is great for them to do, both like them processing through what happened and telling the story and having it create art because it was something that happened to them, and telling their stories through music is their job, but also like something that I hope will help them kind of process through it and get past it. But I think it also like tells people like, hey, like we used to do other things. It's like acknowledging it. It's not burying it. It's like, yeah, we used to be a different group. We used to have a different sound. It exists out there. And, you know, this is who we are now. This is like the transition between those two things, the bridge between those two things that, you know, you get someone like me coming years later who's like, but who were you? Who was that group? Who were you in that moment? And what's the story of it? It makes people curious about it. So I think it's a great way for them to just like have a nod to their past and say like, yeah, that happened, it was part of who we are, it's part of what got us here, and now we're here. So a lot of curiosity with this album. I do feel like, even though I feel like Sleepwalking might be one of the sadder ones, just because of like the lyrical content and like the interpretation that I currently have of it, it's a bop though. I feel like that one might be the one that I end up playing the most, because it's a bop and it's dancey, and like that's definitely gonna end up on one of my fun playlists that I put out when I need like an energy boost. But I hope you enjoyed listening to those songs along with me. You can click this playlist to go and see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe to this next time I post a Dreamcatcher reaction, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!